What's up? I'm Will Fulton from Thrillist with some amazing podcast news. We just launched our very first podcast, Thrillist Best and the Rest. Every week, you can hear me and my amazingly talented colleagues talk about the best of the best in food, drink, travel, and entertainment. From the scariest movie of all time to the best hangover cure ever, listen to Thrillist Best and the Rest on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, basically everywhere and anywhere you can find podcasts.
All right, glad you're with us. All right, sources, State Department official, this guy George Kent's testimony that took place today apparently had some bombshell in it. I don't know what that means, what bombshell. I had been getting word from sources of mine. I'm just telling you, I don't know. Maybe you can get Chad Pergam to call in and see what he knows here. I see he's on Fox here. I had been hearing that sources that the State Department official George Kent added to depth of Giuliani's involvement with Ukrainians. I'm not sure what that means. What I had been hearing is that there is set to come out some exculpatory information as it relates to and would provide context, texture, and understanding as it relates to the president's not only the desire to get to the Ukrainian influence in the 2016 election, but also the very strong reasons that they weren't telling anybody about what it is specifically they were looking for when they withheld money long before the phone call, although the Ukrainians never knew that they had withheld any money. By the way, Rasmussen has a poll today that shows the president had a 7-point bump in the first week of November, putting him back to his 50% mark in the latest survey. Yeah, that would be a good thing, but bad for Democrats, of course. Anyway, so when we find out what it is, we will pass that on to you here. And I think this is getting very interesting. Let's see. Hang on, I'm trying to do this for you, so I'm doing two things at one time. What is, All right, there you go. See, I can do this. Anyway, so there was a campaign of slander, quote, underway from Giuliani. I don't know what that means, what that has anything to do with in any way, shape, matter, or form, how that would impact the investigation into the president. Who knows? What the media says is a bombshell, often turns out to be a lie. We know enough here that is just very, very simple. Like, for example, we've been told for 3 years when we were being lied to, as conspiracy theories have been peddled, as a hoax has been peddled, lies by the congenital liar, the cowardly Schiff has been peddled. We learned a lot that Democrats, they don't really care about election interference, because if they cared about election interference, believes it's related to do not prosecute list. He's calling it. All right, we'll find out what it is. They didn't care about the dirty dossier. The only Russian election interference that they cared about was if they could bludgeon Donald Trump. They don't remember after the Mueller report. That was the fourth investigation. We had an FBI investigation, a House Intel investigation, bipartisan Senate investigation. We had all those investigations. Then the Mueller report investigation. No evidence of collusion. The Attorney General and Rod Rosenstein. Yeah, no obstruction either. And that blew their 3-year mission to get Trump out of office when they started talking about impeachment 2 days after he's elected, right out of the water. So this time, House Democrats released transcript. Okay, so we'll find out what that is. So this time, then they're going to bypass the FBI and the House Intelligence Committee and the bipartisan Senate committee, and they're just going to go straight for impeachment. We don't know why yet, but they're going to impeach him. And they're going to say, well, because of the transcript. Well, the transcript is clear. Read the transcript. We've done it how many times now? It's the president faithfully executing the laws, the thing that we were told they cared so much about, foreign election interference. Well, we were told that they cared a lot about foreign election interference, except not when it involves the Ukraine helping Hillary Clinton, or the fact that a DNC operative was meeting with Ukrainian officials in the Ukrainian embassy for the purpose of colluding so they can dig up dirt on Donald Trump and Paul Manafort and anyone else involved with the Trump campaign. That would be collusion. They don't care about that either. They didn't care about obstruction. They cared, well, why did the why did the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, say there's no obstruction? Mueller's report didn't take a position on that. Okay, what are we learning there? That there was no obstruction, but you got obstruction with Hillary Clinton. You got subpoenaed emails deleted, acid wash the hard drive, bleach bit, hammers devices, and SIM cards. They care about believing people that make allegations of rape or sexual assault, but only if they can bludgeon Trump. This is how sick it's all gotten. You know, they don't want the whistleblower. There's no protection in the whistleblower statute at all. Nothing in the whistleblower statute that protects the anonymity of a whistleblower. And when do we get to the point that a whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower gets such protections? And then when we discover the non-whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower has ties to the guy that lied to us, the congenital liar for 3 years, Adam Schiff, and that there was contact with the staff, nobody in the media cares. Now we're finding out that the whistleblower's attorney, was calling for an impeachment, and the coup was started in January of 2017. It's that unbelievable. Because what you got, FoxNews.com broke this, and we got a little bit in last night on TV, but the president's rally in Louisiana took a lot of the show. But they got a series of tweets from the hearsay whistleblower's attorney, some guy named Mark Zaid. I don't remember the guy. Apparently was on Hannity and Combs back in the day once in 2006, I was told. It's pretty disturbing that in 2017, the non-whistleblower's attorney, obviously deranged, the Trump hater, rage, psychotic Trump person, anti-Trump person, plotting the president's destruction only 10 days after the president was inaugurated. You know, January 30th, 2017, the non-whistleblower's attorney is retweeting news about the acting AG, Sally Yates, getting fired, and then added hashtag coup has started. First of many steps, hashtag rebellion. Hashtag impeachment will follow ultimately. Hashtag lawyers. Oh, by the way, no direct knowledge of Ukraine aid. Is that the bombshell? Anyway, a few months later, the non-whistleblower's attorney on July 1st, 2017, we will get rid of him. And this country is strong enough to survive even him and his supporters. We have to. And then 4 months, the non-whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower's attorney tweets incessantly about President Trump's impeachment. There are comparisons to Nixon, tweets openly fantasizing what it will be like after the president's impeached. And there's even a tweet highlighting how fake news CNN will help take Trump down. I predict CNN will play a key role in the president not finishing out his full term as president. Quote, coup has started. We'll get rid of him. CNN will play a key role. Now, this is the embodiment of everything that I've been telling you. This is the embodiment of everything wrong. We're supposed to believe the whistleblower had the best interest of the country, and that's the whistleblower's attorney. How stupid do they think we are? And by the way, we've pointed out the whistleblower is not entitled to anonymity. He's an informant acting as a Democratic operative, and it's not a real whistleblower, even if he was a real whistleblower with real firsthand information and no ulterior political agenda, apparently colluding in some way with people on the compromised, corrupt, coward, congenital liar Schiff staff. But anyway, absolutely nothing in the whistleblower statute entitles this person to remain in the shadows. And tonight, the tweets from the operative, or today rather, the tweets from the operative represent one more reason why the whistleblower and his handler, the congenital liar Schiff, they've got to be put under oath. We've got to know who they are. Everybody has a right to face their accusers. We know Schiff's office colluded with the non-whistleblower before filing the complaint. Did Schiff also collude with the attorney? Did Schiff recommend the I want to impeach Trump in January 2017 attorney? What role, if any, did Schiff's office have in orchestrating the complaint? They've got to be put under oath. By the way, the non-whistleblower, well, he worked for John Brennan. We already know where he stands on all things Donald Trump. You know, where did he get this third-hand material? After all, he wasn't even on the call in question. I mean, that's how bad this is. Now, maybe a special counsel should be appointed to look into the corrupt, compromised, congenital liar Schiff's, secret Soviet impeachment style coup attempt here. And we can get Schiff's star witness, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, a Ukrainian expert, we're told, who trashed Trump during a closed-door session. Well, obviously, he has a political agenda. I salute him for serving his country, working with the fake whistleblower and the federal government on U.S. policy in Ukraine. They're colleagues still working together. And you have the congenital liar Schiff just wants you to believe that, these are people independently corroborating. We don't need anybody's testimony in all of this because we know for a fact what was said on the call. Anyway, it's just unbelievable to me. The whole thing is unbelievable to me. And you know what the great irony is? The great irony in all of this is we've got real information about a quid pro quo. There was no evidence of any quid pro quo at all. The quid pro quo. We got Joe Biden. If you fire now, remember, Joe Biden was warned that the New York Times is investigating his son, and others warned Joe Biden that the prosecutor that he's demanding be fired in 6 hours was investigating his zero experience son who was being paid millions of dollars, millions. And what did Joe do? You got 6 hours. Fire the guy, you'll get $1 billion. You don't fire the guy, you're not getting the $1 billion. You got 6 hours. You don't believe me? Ask Obama. I guess Obama was in on it. He was fine with it. And then we have now the new evidence. Oh, what are we finding out with the new evidence? Yeah, that Ukraine was using, that Burisma was using Hunter Biden's name with the Obama State Department. Hey, can you stop these investigations into us? Because we even have Hunter Biden on our board and everything. Well, why would you ever give millions of dollars to somebody that has no experience? Quid pro quo Joe. This idea, this former ambassador testifying, yours truly played some kind of role. I don't know anything about this woman. I have never talked to anybody in Ukraine. If I did, I don't know it. It's not. All I know is what the Bidens did there. Just mentioned in passing 4 times on my TV show. That's it. Pushing a conspiracy theory of paranoia. Oh, Mike Pompeo was going to call Hannity. Well, that never happened. None of this happened. And then, more news that we're getting about there's another attorney involved in this, too, who apparently once worked for Hillary and Schumer. That's how incestuous this all gets. And then we got the whistleblower's attorney scrambling to explain the outrageous coup attempt. Oh, it was those tweets were reflected and repeated in the sentiments of other millions of peoples. Oh, OK. No, I don't think anybody in January of 2017, unless you are a nut, was talking about impeachment. We also are learning that Biden co-hosted a banquet with the former Secretary of State John Kerry, for then Italian Prime Minister at the time. And yeah, the whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower was among U.S. officials that accepted the invitation. But we can't mention the name because if we do, the lawyer says you'll be held responsible. And, the Washington Post comes out with a story. Trump wanted Barr to say publicly the president broke no laws. Well, there were already 2 statements by the Attorney General's office on this. 2. It's unbelievable.
In a future ravaged by climate change and fossil fuel dependency, a special agent of the world's largest oil corporation descends into the depths to search for a missing executive aboard a sprawling deep-sea station. The Second Oil Age is a fiction podcast full of futuristic horror and intrigue. Each short-form episode drags the listener through a media-saturated world inspired by underwater action films from the 80s and 90s to present a cautionary tale of humanity's refusal to embrace the future. Listen to The Second Oil Age on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
I just got told by somebody I was mentioned again. I don't know any of the names that they have associated with this thing. This is like a huge, just massive lie. It's cracking me up. I have never talked to these people. I don't even know who any of them are. It's hilarious to me. Did you see what I just said to you guys? It's so funny. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, I don't know what exactly is at the bottom of this. I may just have to get a libel attorney on this tomorrow because you know what? Or today. This is just ridiculous. I have never spoken to anybody in Ukraine in my life. You know, only thing I knew is quid pro quo Joe. We got Joe on tape. Joe saying, you want the $1 billion? Well, we'll get you the $1 billion. If you fire the prosecutor that I was warned was investigating my son, if you don't give us, you don't fire the guy in 6 hours, you don't get the $1 billion. Well, that would be quid pro quo Joe. It's the only thing I was focused in on. That's the only thing. We went back. We looked. This former holdover Ukrainian ambassador. I don't know anything about this woman. I don't know anything about, our name came up in passing like 4 times on my show. I couldn't even pronounce the woman's name. Or some guy that they said reached out to me from the State Department. Never heard of the guy in my life. That's how simple that answer is. Unbelievable. What do you think it is? Honestly, I've got my thoughts on this, but the facts remain the facts. No experienced hunter, being paid millions. Daddy is warned by the New York Times. He leverages $1 billion taxpayer dollars in a quid pro quo. Fire the prosecutor investigating my no experienced son, and you get $1 billion. You don't fire him. You don't get the $1 billion. You got 6 hours to do it. Why doesn't the media care about that?
The Hannity podcast is out now. If you want honest golf talk and entertainment, you'll love my show full of powerful opinions, captivating interviews, and the best instruction to improve your golf game. I'm Hank Haney, and I've coached for over 43 years, taught over 200 touring professionals, and worked with the absolute best of the best. I've also been recognized as one of golf's top 50 worldwide personalities and been elected to the World Golf Teachers Hall of Fame. I'll discuss the biggest storylines in golf and beyond and give you the real breakdown. I guarantee you this, nobody prepares facts, data, and tells it like it is more than me. You'll also hear from some of the top names in golf, sports, and entertainment while we deliver unfiltered opinions, witty conversation, and lively debates that are sure to make you think. iHeartRadio is #1 for podcasts, and it's easy to see why. Listen and follow on Apple Podcasts or on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, 25 now till the top of the hour, 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of this extravaganza. I mean, this is pretty crazy. I never got a phone call from anybody. And it keeps, Sean Hannity was called by this person. I never even heard the names of the people that they say called. I've never heard their names before. And Mike Pompeo never called me. And, so I'm kind of like laughing. We went back and looked, and what we found, the only thing we found about that holdover ambassador person was mentions by other people, like in passing. It wasn't even anything of any real importance that I saw. I think once by DeGeneva, once by Rudy, once by Solomon. That was it. And me, I was focused like a laser beam on the Bidens, because you watch what's happening here and you got to understand what's in play in all of this is you've got a double standard and you've got this breathless hysteria that drives everything that is about 362 days away. And what's that? That's the election. This is a tipping point election. It is going to get so insane and so crazy and so bizarre and so hostile that I don't think there's ever going to be an end to the hatred of Donald Trump. I mean, let's assume that they impeach him. It's not a done deal, by the way. But let's say they do. He's not going to get convicted in the Senate because the president rightfully was looking for information on Ukrainian election interference, which we know. Then the next point is, okay, then what about Hunter Biden? Well, we've identified the laws that the media does not even want to discuss or ever talk about. How is it that we've got U.S. Code 15 U.S.C. 78? It is illegal for a U.S. person to coerce or influence through bribery or extortion a foreign nation into taking action that might financially benefit that person, his family, or business. All right, the New York Times warned Joe Biden. Hunter Biden, Mr. Zero Experience, not no experience, zero experience. He's making millions. And why would they pay him millions of dollars? 18 U.S.C. 201C. Whoever gives, offers, or promises anything of value to a public official to influence an official act, well, that's guilty of bribery. Okay, if anyone offers, provide $1 billion if you fire him, public official act, fire them, you get the $1 billion. You don't get the $1 billion. 18 U.S.C. 201B, giving, offering, promising anything of value to a public official, $1 billion, in exchange for any official act. Fire the prosecutor. They don't care about that. The mob and the media, they don't care. Democrats, they don't care. They're acting like, well, what about the quid pro quo? Well, what about the president commenting on, wow, somebody with zero experience everywhere his father goes seems to be getting huge contracts with zero experience. You know, you've got the leveraging of taxpayer dollars, $1 billion taxpayer dollars, $1 billion. You get the $1 billion if you fire the guy that the New York Times says is investigating my son. Oh, hang on a second. You don't fire him, you don't get the $1 billion. Anyway, how is that not the quid pro quo that they're claiming Trump's involved in when Trump didn't have a quid pro quo? We're supposed to accept that this is equal application of standards of the law. Hillary Clinton gets a pass nobody else would get away with. Subpoenaed emails, deleted, cleaned out hard drives, busted up devices, removal of SIM cards. None of us will get that deal. None of us will get top secret classified information that doesn't belong where you put it, would get away with the 18 U.S.C. 793, that particular case with Hillary Clinton. The Espionage Act and every subsection. Everyone cares about Russian interference except for a dirty Russian dossier that was bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton. Everyone cares about election interference, but they don't care about Ukrainian election interference. They bring this poor guy Kavanaugh to his knees and pummel this guy and bludgeon this guy, to bring him to tears in front of his young children. But no I believers with the lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're supposed to accept that this is business as usual. It's not. Now we got the attorney for the non-whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower. And what do we know? Well, we know that the attorney was talking about impeachment on day one. How is that possible? There was a story today that should upset every law-abiding American. And, Obama's FBI, their attempt to frame General Michael Flynn. Can you imagine bragging, the FBI director bragging? Yeah, I sent him in. I'd never do it, try it, get away with it in the Obama Bush years, but I did it. Wow, that's a big deal. Anyway, the FBI is now admitting that they mixed up the 302 witness summaries of the Flynn interview because they got caught. Because we all knew for a long time that even though Flynn calls, do I need an attorney for these FBI guys or am I good here? No, you're good. McCabe told them that. They don't care about that. Imagine taking away Carter Page's constitutional rights and then using a phony dossier you were warned is phony that we now know is unverifiable when it says verify on a FISA application. And then using that to backdoor everything, everything into Trump. The Trump campaign, the Trump transition, Trump presidency. Anyway, Sidney Powell, the attorneys now that's helping General Flynn, the attorneys prosecuting General Flynn, they had to admit in court this week in a letter to Flynn's legal defense that the notes which form the official document describing Flynn's January 2017 interview and They took advantage of the chaos, as, the great super patriot James Comey admits, were not written by Agent Peter Strzok, as they maintained throughout the case. We were informed that the notes we had identified as Peter Strzok's were actually the other agent's notes. And what we had identified as the other agent's notes were, in fact, Strzok's notes. This is what we do to a 33-year veteran. By the way, this is good news. Looks like the Republican Senate is about to investigate the real quid pro quo scandal. We now have, Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley. They're now calling on the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, to release documents related to former Vice President Joe Biden's son and his work for a Ukrainian energy company, saying Hunter Biden's role may have been used to influence the Obama State Department. Oh, that's good news. They're now demanding all State Department records related to Hunter Biden and Burisma Holdings, the company that issued the corruption probe. Well, we've identified the crimes here. We know what's going on. And the DOJ, by the way, could release conclusions on the FBI spying, probably, I'm told, the 18th now. That would be good to hear, too. But the people that need to be put under oath would be, the compromised, corrupt, coward, and congenital liar, Adam Schiff. Live 3 years about Trump-Russia collusion, Trump-Russia collusion. Well, Jim Jordan now has announced that they're going to subpoena the whistleblower to testify as part of the, secret Soviet-style impeachment coup attempt of the congenital liar and Nancy Pelosi. Anyway, and he said, as lawmakers are battling over whether to identify the so-called whistleblower, everyone's known the name of the whistleblower forever. And the media, they just go into full cover-up mode. The irony in all of this is we just found out that a CBS News staffer who was working for ABC is being accused of having had access to the tape of Amy Robach and Project Veritas when they released the tape. We've got everything on Epstein. I've had it for 3 years. It even brings in Clinton and Prince Andrew. They wouldn't let me run it because they're afraid maybe we wouldn't get an interview with Kate and the royal family. Wow. Now they fired this whistleblower. I thought they were protective of whistleblowers. Apparently not. Only protective of whistleblowers that, I guess, back up their agenda. And, now they're chasing down a whistleblower about all the Epstein stuff. And now that woman apparently just got fired from CBS because ABC went after CBS and said, you better stop your new employee from releasing our stuff. Oh, so we'll fire that whistleblower. This is so corrupt. You can't even make this stuff up. You really can't. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up in a spy novel. And I love the fact that I do my job and make phone. Hannity knows yeah, I know Manafort. Hannity knows Cohn. Yeah, I know him. Hannity knows the Trump family. Yeah, I do. Hannity, well, how do you think that we broke all these stories on the deep state? It's called reporting, investigative reporting. That's all part of being a talk show host, as I explained on the program yesterday. So that's why Hannity's name keeps coming up. I just think in the rest of the mob and the media, I'm beginning to think they don't ever make a phone call. I'm beginning to think they don't do any original reporting. Or they only call the people that they agree with. And now we got the whistleblower's attorney talking about impeachment in January 2017. We got the other attorney worked for Hillary and Schumer. We got the impeachment whistleblower now closer ties to Biden than we thought, according to the Washington Examiner, that Biden co-hosted a banquet with then Secretary of State John. I voted for the $87 billion before I voted against it, Kerry, and the Italian Prime Minister. Yeah, the name of the whistleblower was among U.S. officials accepting the invitation. Oh, it's nice to know people that in high places, because then you can help them out down the road when you hate Trump. They're saying that, President Trump wanted the attorney general to publicly say that the president broke no laws in Ukraine in the phone call. Well, actually, the Department of Justice had released a statement and that they were referred to the matter relating to a letter of the Director of National Intelligence had received for the Inspector General for the intelligence community regarding a purported whistleblower complaint. And the Inspector General's letter cited a conversation with the president and the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, as a potential violation of campaign finance law. Now, relying on established procedures set forth in the Justice Manual and the Department of Criminal Division, they reviewed the official record of the call and determined based on the facts and applicable law that there was no campaign finance violation and no further action was warranted. All relevant components of the department agreed with the legal conclusion, and the department concluded the matter. Well, unbelievable. There's no anonymity for a whistleblower. They can't be retribution. Devin Nunes will join us at the top of the next hour. He says the first witness the GOP will call will be Adam Schiff. And Nunes also said about Schiff, committing a crime for not revealing the Ukraine whistleblower. You know, people in this country do have a right to face their accusers. One other note on this. Because it looks like the compromised, corrupt, cowardly, congenital liar, Schiff, is now moving the goalposts once again when it comes to his brand new Soviet-style impeachment coup, which we know is completely biased with none of the protections Newt Gingrich gave Bill Clinton in 1998. Anyway, put a new set of restrictions Thursday morning, limiting the Republicans' ability to call witnesses that can respond to 3 questions, all of which reflect Democratic views. And then the question detailed in a letter from Schiff to Devin Nunes are, did the president request a foreign leader and government initiate investigations to benefit the president's personal political interest in the United States, including an investigation into the president's political rival? Well, Biden's not a rival of anything. Biden is trying to get the nomination and not doing a very good job of it. Did the president directly the bottom line is there is nothing in the House impeachment inquiry resolution passed last week that allows Schiff to limit the scope of the questions. But he can't bring in the whistleblower because then he's going to be asked questions about his role and his contacts with the non-whistleblower. By the way, survey shows enthusiasm higher for Republicans. Washington Examiner. Yeah, much higher. And also, Zogby has Trump up 7 points. Even Hillary's now ripping Medicare for all, saying it's never going to happen. I don't know what's going on here, but it's getting interesting.
When it comes to sports, history doesn't change. Or does it? Come find out on the Special Teams Podcast, which is now available. I'm Jason Smith.
And I'm Mike Harmon. Together, Jason and I are looking back at the most compelling teams in sports history. Squads we rooted for or against as they achieved their titles of best of the best.
But teams don't always have to win to make it on our podcast. You just had to be fun, or infamous, or dangerous.
You'll remember the big moments, and maybe become aware of some you didn't know.
Each episode will feature a different team, and we'll also do a deep dive into what was happening in popular culture at the time. Because, hey, it's not just sports, it's life.
I was heading into my sophomore year, and heavy metal was all the rage.
Dude, that's like 1981.
Listen and follow on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, now I got to the bottom of this. So whoever this former Ukrainian prosecutor isn't really, I have no idea about, is really mad at what a prosecutor. Now, I've got an article here in front of me, which is pretty interesting here. And it goes on, and which, is kind of amazing, actually. It was a piece in The Hill and a videoed interview where a top Ukrainian justice official said the U.S. ambassador gave him a do not prosecute list. That's why they're saying, well, we told the State Department it's not true, and you better tell Hannity to shut up about it. Well, wasn't my story, number one. Wasn't where I really cared a whole lot about, number two. And number three, the guy saying it on tape to John Solomon, go take it up with the prosecutor. And the mere, it was sort of like a pass away reference on the show. Their problem's not with me. Nobody called me. I don't even know who this person is. Never heard of the person. Never heard of the call. All right, Devin Nunes, John Solomon, Tom Fenton, Jonathan Danielle, all coming up.
iHeartRadio brings you some of the biggest podcasts of all time, like Stuff You Should Know and Stuff You Missed in History Class. Plus the hottest podcasts of the last year, like the Ron Burgundy podcast, Disgraceland, and Monster, the Zodiac Killer. Not only does iHeartRadio produce some of the most popular podcasts in the world, but now the free iHeartRadio app is the fastest growing app for listening to your favorite podcasts. Over 280,000 podcasts, all easy to find and free to listen to on the app or anytime at iHeartRadio.com.
But can they call them? Do you think that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden will be called as part of this Senate trial?
I certainly hope not, but I think that may very well happen. The Republican majority, rather than working with us in the Democratic caucus and coming up with widely agreed upon bipartisan rules for how to proceed with the impeachment, are, at least according to that report you just shared, looking for ways to further juice the partisan aspects of this ongoing inquiry.
Well, I don't think we can't subpoena. Only Adam Schiff can subpoena Adam Schiff.
Oh, I guess that's
but
not
there's a
happen.
precedent for this.
Darn, I forgot. He's the judge, jury, and executioner. I forgot.
But remember, last Congress, they were hell-bent on making sure that former Congressman Dana Rohrabacher testified. I said, look, I don't think this is a very good idea to turn around and have members of Congress come and testify and give depositions. So congratulations, Democrats that were on the House Intelligence Committee that's now become the impeachment committee. They have set the precedent for members of Congress to give depositions. And so you heard our minority leader, the Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy, say that Schiff is our first witness. You've had John Ratcliffe, a former U.S. attorney in Congress, say Adam Schiff is our first witness. So yes, he in fact is going to be our first witness that we're going to ask to come and give a deposition.
All right, hour two, Sean Hannity Show, 800-941. Sean, you want to be a part of the program. What you heard there was Senator Chris Coons. Joe and Hunter Biden may be called as witnesses at a Senate trial. If you want a quid, a pro, and a quo with Joe, you got it. You fire the prosecutor, you get $1 billion. You don't fire the prosecutor in 6 hours, you're not getting the $1 billion. And Devin Nunes saying that House Republicans have got to call the compromised, corrupt coward who won't come on this show, congenital liar for 3 years about Trump-Russia collusion, Adam Schiff, who is in charge of this 12-ring circus. 800-941-SEAN is our number. The ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, former chairman, Devin Nunes, is with us. I would like to see the whistleblower put under oath. I want to know the relationship that the whistleblower had with Schiff and Schiff's office, what recommendations may or may not have been made, where this information came from. I want to know the relationship possibly with Brennan as a holdover from the Obama years. And I want to know how Hunter and Joe Biden was warned about his son Hunter being investigated by this prosecutor Shokin, that Joe Biden demanded to be fired in 6 hours or they don't get $1 billion. Why is nobody outraged about that quid pro quo with Joe? Devin Nunes.
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me on. And look, this has become, circus is too nice of a word for this. They failed. The Russia hoax failed. After Mueller, they failed. And this is just the latest in this scam. And I said this, I think, the other night on your show. This has really become just a cult movement. And the media and millions of Americans are all in on it. They're just followers of this cult that's happening behind closed doors. So, of course, the whistleblower has to come in. I mean, is this a joke? And if we had a media halfway worth anything in this country, they'd be demanding that the whistleblower come in.
How does Adam Schiff is a fact witness? That's a fact. Adam Schiff is compromised in all of this.
Yeah, well, look, the fact that he won't come clean and tell us, like, look, if it was no big deal, he could just say, hey, I never met with a whistleblower, and we just got one phone call, right? And then we'd say, okay, yeah, maybe there wasn't anything there. The fact that they're not doing that tells us that there must have been multiple phone calls. It's likely with many members of his staff, not just one or two. So this is much worse than I think anybody realizes, which is why the Democrats have went from, we have to hear from this whistleblower, to, oh, what whistleblower? Is there a whistleblower? We don't know anything about that.
Well, there's no due process. We've gone over that ad nauseum. The coup has started January 2017. The lawyer for the hearsay whistleblower, whistleblower. And I predict at CNN will play a key role in at real Donald Trump not finishing out his full term as president. This is January 2017. Congressman.
Yeah, I had flashbacks to when I heard that. That reminded me of the Struck page texts. I mean,
really, it's a good point.
It's almost as bad, really, right? I mean, being that you've got a whistleblower's attorney that's essentially calling for a coup. It's kind of like when Page and Struck were investigating the Trump and the campaign, and they're saying that what's the famous line that Hillary should win 100 million to zero.
To zero, yeah. By the way, do you know that the partner of this guy? This was I believe it was where is it? No, Daily Wire had this story today. But anyway, this guy who is the lawyer for the hearsay whistleblower, who's not a whistleblower. Anyway, it turns out he has a second attorney. Guess what? That attorney worked for Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer. Hello? Does anyone see a pattern here? This is Russia on steroids and human growth hormone. I said it early. This is a secret, behind closed doors, Soviet-style impeachment coup attempt. And to get here, Congressman, you have to ignore Joe Biden on tape. You got 6 hours. If you fire the prosecutor, the New York Times warned me was investigating my son, I'll give you $1 billion. If you don't fire him, you're not getting the $1 billion. And son of a B, they fired him. Quid pro quo Joe. How do you ignore that?
The news that you broke on your show the other night with John Solomon, John Solomon's reporting, now we have more than circumstantial evidence now. We actually have emails, internal communications that the State Department was being requested to have meetings with these characters, and then there was multiple calls by the vice president shortly after those meetings occurred. So there is more than just a theory here. There's really good evidence now that this needs to be investigated further.
We have some really important questions here. Now, the whistleblower statute does not entitle anybody to any anonymity. That's number one. Number two, the Attorney General of the Washington Post trying to run cover and say, the Trump wanted Barr to hold a news conference. They'd already issued statements on all of this. That's number two. Now the big question is, all right, who are the witnesses that you as the ranking member believe need to be called in this Ukrainian witch hunt, Devin Nunes?
Well, the obvious one is Adam Schiff and or his staff, anyone who had connections and communications with this supposed whistleblower. And, we need to understand at the very foundation of this investigation what happened and what occurred. And being that, and this is really unprecedented, Sean, and I think people are not paying close enough attention to this. As long as I've been around, I've never been in a situation with a whistleblower. So when I'm on all my service dealing with which is nearly a decade now on dealing with the intelligence agencies. I mean, this is always bipartisan. You can't just go to one party where the one party knows the name and the other party doesn't know. There's a certain grace period.
Well,
right?
I hate to say it, but the ever compromised, corrupt, congenital liar. They actually released the name of the whistleblower, as you know, in information that they sent out that is now public. They released it.
Well, but remember, nobody really knows who the whistleblower is. I mean, I think there's reporters out there who have been able to, surmise based on the educated guesses, essentially. But the reality is, Sean, only Schiff and the IG and his staff and the whistleblower's attorney know who this is. There is not enough evidence. I know this sounds crazy, but if we were in court right now, okay, this would be dismissed immediately because they cannot provide evidence that a whistleblower actually exists.
The guy that's running this sham impeachment, no due process impeachment, is the guy that's lied to us for 3 years about Trump-Russia collusion. Number one, he can't bring the whistleblower in Because if he does, people like you and John Ratcliffe are going to demand answers to the nature of the relationship between the hearsay whistleblower and Adam Schiff, the congenital liar's office.
That's right. And also, not to kind of switch gears a little bit here, but the depositions have not been going very well for them. The mainstream media.
Whoa, slow down. You mean they're selectively releasing only those few comments that benefit them, and they've been hiding the other 98% of it? That's what my sources are telling me, Congressman.
Well, right. So they would do a deposition, and then they would leak out. Right? They would the opening testimony would come out, and then they'd leak out these supposed bombshells every day for the last 6 weeks. Well, now that the transcripts are coming out, what are we actually seeing? We're seeing that they have the witnesses they brought in, that are the star witnesses that ran on the front pages of all the major newspapers, all the major networks. Now what are we seeing? At best, these guys had fourth and fifth-hand information. That's one key point that the media is not covering. Second key point, you've got one of their star witnesses admitting that the way they heard about Burisma was from the New York Times. Now, haven't we gone through this yet already, that leaking information to the media, then turning around and using that media as your source to justy an investigation?
You mean the circular reporting, like with the dirty Russian Hillary Clinton bought and paid for Russian dossier?
Yeah.
Congressman, let me ask you, when are we getting this IG report? When are we getting the Durham report? I mean, seriously, I can tell you, I am beyond frustrated at this point. At the length of time, the inspector general is like 600 people working for him, Congressman. How long does it take to write one report when the evidence is overwhelming?
So remember, I've been the one out there, the kind of the lone soldier out on this, is that I don't put a lot of credence into what the IG says. I know a lot of people love Horowitz. Look, I don't know Horowitz. I haven't met with Horowitz. I'm glad that he's doing an investigation into FISA abuse. That, essentially the only reason he's doing that is because of what the Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee did. We threw it out in front of their face. They had to take it up. It's taken a long time, but look, Horowitz can get some really great evidence. I think the report is going to be good, and from all accounts,
let me ask you this:
meaning it's going to be thorough. But
tell me where I'm factually wrong. We know that the Department of Justice was warned likely at least 5 specific times between Kathleen Kavlak, Bruce Orr in August of 2016. Don't trust the dossier. Steele has an agenda that's anti-Trump. It's unverified, and Hillary paid for it. They were warned. So that makes this premeditated fraud on a court. FISA warrant says verified on top of it. We now know it's unverifiable because even Steele didn't stand behind it. And eventually the FBI debunked 90%. They were able to prove 90% of it was lies. Probably, right. I would argue all of it. So that would be premeditated fraud committed on a FISA court to spy on a presidential candidate, a transition team, and president, and deny another American their constitutional rights. Is that hard to figure out, or am I way off base here?
Well, the only thing that you forgot, and I know that you had Lee Smith, who has a new book out. I think he was on your show last week. The other issue that the FBI had to have known about is that Steele wasn't the guy who actually wrote the dossiers.
Who wrote the dossier, Congressman?
Fusion GPS wrote the original dossiers.
Did they do it with the help of Ukraine?
With the help of Ukraine. Imagine that.
Imagine that. So maybe the president asking what everyone said was important for information that they have regarding foreign election interference would be relevant. And quid pro quo, Joe, that would be a crime. I've identified 4 separate crimes. So it looks like the president was faithfully executing the laws of the land to me in that transcript, sir.
It's all. Not only is it relevant, but Giuliani, and even people can argue that maybe he shouldn't have been on TV as much and should have been more focused on his messaging. But that's a bunch of Monday morning quarterbacking. The bottom line is that Giuliani absolutely had to go to Ukraine to figure out who on earth were the sources for Fusion GPS's work that they then eventually got fed into the FBI. This Alexander Chalupa, DNC operative, what was her communication?
They were colluding
with the Ukrainian embassy in Washington.
They were colluding. We now know. A Ukrainian court determined it. Politico wrote about it January 11, 2017. I'll say this, Congressman, thank God for people like you. We'd be lost without you. I'd be sitting here blowing, hot air and nobody would be helping. You're backing everything up. Thank you for being with us.
And I just want to, just my final point I'll make on this, just to close the loop on Horowitz. Look, it's not that I'm negative about Horowitz. I just know how IGs work. This isn't going to be like some slam dunk. However, this is evidence that will go to the Durham investigation, and that is what I'm most interested in.
When are we getting that?
That is where my criminal referrals are
in
sitting
2024?
Right now, I want action on.
2025 are we going to get? When are we going to get that information?
Look, it's going to come out.
Exactly. It's annoying.
Going to come out this year.
All right, Congressman, thank you for what you do. 800-941-SEAN. John Solomon, Tom Fitton next. A total bloodbath with Don and KG on The View earlier today. We'll hit that. All of this on Hannity tonight at 9.
Man, it's crazy out there. What's really going on in this country these days? If you want one daily deep dive for everything about politics, national security, and culture, subscribe and listen to the Buck Sexton Show podcast. As a former CIA analyst who served overseas in 2 war zones, I bring a pro-freedom, pro-constitution perspective to today's events, and we have plenty of laughs about the absurdity of things, too. I'm one of the young guns of radio. You may have heard me filling in for Rush Limbaugh in the past. Well, now I've got one of the most insightful and exciting podcasts anywhere, and that's why I want you to check out the Buck Sexton Show podcast as soon as you can. The Buck Sexton Show covers more ground than anybody else, whether it's taking lessons from ancient history to apply to current politics or the best Netflix shows. We cover it all. The Buck Sexton Show podcast is available now every weekday. Usually goes up at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So listen to the Buck Sexton Show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I'm not going to ascribe motivations to this, but I must tell you that it certainly lends some, there's an appearance, at least in the minds of some, that this is politically motivated because of the continued insistence by Mr. Trump that this is all a grand hoax, and the former leaders of the intelligence and law enforcement community were involved in this effort to try to subvert the candidacy and the electoral prospects of Mr. Trump, which is the furthest from the truth that could be.
Actually, the evidence says just the opposite. They rigged an investigation. Hillary Clinton's email server. There were violations. 18 USC 793, the Espionage Act. You don't get to delete subpoenaed emails, clean up the hard drive, bust up the devices, remove SIM cards. That's not allowed either. And then you can't use the pretext of what we now know unverifiable Hillary Clinton bought and paid for dirty Russian dossier with funneled money to a law firm, to an op research firm, to a foreign national. And when you finally get around to verifying it, you prove 90+% is not even true. But yet it becomes the bulk of information in an application to deny one American all constitutional rights, but more importantly, a backdoor to spy on a campaign. John Solomon, investigative reporter and journalist, Fox News contributor. Tom Fitton is with us. He's the president of Judicial Watch. The coup has started, John Solomon. Whistleblower's attorney, we're not allowed to talk about, apparently. You can't mention him. Don Jr. did, and it's everywhere else, and everybody in Washington knows the big secret. Then we have the attorney scrambling to explain, the coup has started. CNN fake news will play a key role in Donald Trump not finishing his first term and bragging ad nauseum. This is January 2017, that in fact they're going to, we're 45 years from now, we're going to be recalling stories regarding the impeachment of @real Donald Trump. We also find out that the other attorney for the non-whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower, that other attorney once worked for Hillary and Chuck Schumer. And in the meantime, we'll ignore the Russian influence in 2016. We'll ignore the dirty Russian dossier Hillary paid for. And we'll ignore Ukraine election interference, even though a court decided that in Ukraine and proved that. And Politico wrote about it in January of 2017. And we'll do all of that. We'll blame, the attorney general and other people that have exposed the lies. Am I wrong on any count?
No, not at all. And I think the parallels between the Russia collusion hoax, which has now been exposed, and the ongoing Ukraine story are enormous, right? The key players were all politically biased at the FBI. Now we find out the lawyer leading the whistleblower who starts this whole thing for Adam Schiff is a partisan, and early on imagined or dreamed of the idea that he'd somehow play a role in the impeachment of Donald Trump. It goes to what we said the very first time I saw the whistleblower complaint, what I said on your show the first time. I've read many whistleblower complaints. I've read many, many good intelligence products. The whistleblower complaint is neither a good intelligence product, nor is it a typical whistleblower document. It is a political document. It's a political hearsay document. And I think that the more people dig into this, the more we learn about the motives, the collaboration between Adam Schiff, the whistleblower, this partisan attorney, the more we're going to come to understand that the Ukraine scandal looks an awful lot like the beginnings of the origins of the Russia
But it
case.
even runs deeper than that, doesn't it, John? Because of you and the Southeastern Legal Foundation and your Freedom of Information Act requests, we have this whole situation. Media says, oh, there's no evidence of any wrongdoing. This is a conspiracy theory about Joe Biden. Joe Biden's bragging on tape about his quid pro quo.
Yeah,
if you fire the prosecutor who you interviewed and ABC interviewed and the Washington Post interviewed and then said the same thing to all three of you, which is, I got fired because of Biden. Biden goes, you have 6 hours. Fire the prosecutor, you get $1 billion. You don't fire the prosecutor, you don't get the $1 billion. And now, now, we also know that Joe Biden knew, because he was warned by the New York Times and others, that the prosecutor was investigating his son and the company that was paying him millions when he had no experience in Ukraine or in the energy field at all. So he fires the prosecutor, leveraging $1 billion taxpayer dollars, quid pro quo Joe. Prosecutor gets fired, son of a bee's fired. And yet the money that his son keeps getting keeps going into the coffers of Hunter Biden. But now we discovered, they did expect something for their millions of dollars to the no experience son of the vice president, didn't they?
Yep, and there's a big development on this today, Sean. This is breaking right now. Senators Grassley and Johnson, who chair two of the most important committees in Congress, Finance and Government Oversight, those two committees today made a joint request of Mike Pompeo. They want all documents by November 20th, all documents related to Hunter Biden, Burisma's contacts, Devin Archer's contacts, and what the State Department may or may not have done to assist Burisma and Hunter Biden in making the corruption allegations go away. This is a major escalation. For a long time, Republicans in Congress had kind of kept hands off on this. This is the first real investigative request to drill in and find out what really was the State Department doing with Hunter Biden, Burisma, Joe Biden, and Devin Archer. Stay tuned. I think there's going to be some pretty dramatic developments on that front.
So it looks like not only is it similar to the Russia hoax, conspiracy theory, lies, and the witch hunt, but now I would say, and we've identified a number of laws, Tom Fitton. Number one, 18, and I'll go through them. I don't think this is hard. Greg Jarrett was the first to bring it to my attention. 15 U.S.C. 78. It is illegal for a U.S. person to coerce, influence through bribery or extortion a foreign nation into taking an action that might financially benefit that person, his family, or business. You get the $1 billion if you fire the prosecutor. My son gets paid. Take an action. I'm holding out that. 18 U.S.C. 201C. Whoever gives, offers, or promises anything of value of $1 billion to a public official, Ukraine, to influence an official act, fire the prosecutor, is guilty of bribery. 18 U.S.C. 201B. Giving, offering, promising, anything of value to a public official in exchange for any official act. Wow. And it goes on from there. I could name more. It sounds to me like that fits perfectly into what we already know as fact in the case with Hunter and Joe.
Well, certainly given the standards used to attack President Trump, there's much more evidence justifying a serious criminal investigation of what went on with the Obama administration.
Well, slow down. You're being a little too emotionless here for me. Joe Biden leverages, if you fire the prosecutor who I'm told is investigating my son, paying my son with no experience, millions of dollars, you fire him, you get $1 billion. You don't fire him, you don't get $1 billion. You don't believe me? Call Obama. And you got 6 hours to do it. Now, Tom, is that a quid pro quo? Sounds like it to me.
Oh, it sounds like a direct quid pro quo. The only question is, what was his knowledge of his son's business? How extensive was it? We already know he has certainly conflicted testimony with his son.
We know
this.
the New York Times warned him.
His son said he did talk about it.
That's correct. The son contradicts the father. I believe it was the New Yorker. But think about this. He was warned that prosecutor was investigating his son. True or false? John Solomon?
Heads up in the administration. I mean, John's document shows the State Department was worried about it. They were so worried about it, they didn't want to deal with it. They said, talk to Joe Biden's office.
Correct.
And of course, there were media stories at the time that they were all worried about it. So everyone knew in Washington, and we're all expected to throw all this into the memory hole. The major media had confirmed the Obama administration was well aware, and certainly Biden was, of his son's issues in Ukraine.
And John Solomon, didn't the New York Times warn Joe that his son was being investigated?
If you go through the public documents, you will see in May of 2014, there was a series of stories raising questions why Hunter Biden was doing this. December of 2015, the New York Times has the vice president's office quoted saying they didn't want to talk about the investigation of their son. It was a Hunter Biden matter. It is implausible that Joe Biden didn't know his son was working for Burisma or he didn't know about the investigation. And ignorance is not a defense under ethics laws. Remember, one of the ethics requirements for Joe Biden is to avoid taking actions that not only create a conflict of interest, but the appearance of a conflict of interest. Firing the guy that's investigating your son's company creates the appearance of a conflict of interest. How do we know that? State Department people working for Obama and officials working for Joe Biden directly in the vice president's office have been quoted in numerous stories recently saying they saw the appearance of a conflict of interest. If Joe Biden's own people saw the appearance, how could Joe Biden be so willfully blind to the appearance of a conflict of interest?
Ukraine is key to the whole investigation of President Trump. It was used as a
slow down. This is what Tom is saying here is important, because we know from a Ukrainian court decision that, yes, they admit they interfered in the 2016 elections to help Hillary. It was also documented January 11, 2017, a long piece by Politico. And John, before we get to Tom, you can confirm that Ukraine wanted to give us the evidence. Did they ever give it?
They tried to. They hired a former U.S. attorney from the Bush administration in the fall of 2018 to approach the Justice Department. That U.S. attorney took a general summary of what the Ukrainian prosecutors believe might interest American prosecutors about Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, and election interference, sent it to the Southern District of New York, Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office, and never heard back from them. And that very much frustrated them. I wrote a whole story about this in the spring about the Ukrainian prosecutors saying, why does no one want our evidence? That absolutely happened, irrefutably.
All right, take a break. I'll let you pick it up on the other side. Tom Fitton, John Solomon also with us. Oh, it became just a total beatdown on The View today when Don Jr. and KG went up against the ladies of The View. We'll play the highlights coming up. We'll get to your calls next hour. We have an amazing Hannity tonight, 9 Eastern on Fox. Quick break, right back. We'll continue straight ahead. All right, as we continue, investigative reporter, Fox News contributor John Solomon. Tom Fitton is the president of Judicial Watch. Tom, we were going to let you pick it up from where this whole issue of Ukraine being central to the entire Russia witch hunt in question. The Joe Biden quid pro quo Joe to protect his son who was being investigated. And, the media says that's a conspiracy theory. You think there's a lot more to come?
Well, yeah, because I think you need to understand that, as John has pointed out, they didn't want to hear the deep state, didn't want to hear material from any evidence about Joe Biden and Ukraine, but they were more than happy to hear evidence generated out of Ukraine through the dossier gatherers such as Nellie Orr, through the Associated Press, who we have documents showing were giving Andrew Weissman material on Ukraine. So they were using Manafort's work in Ukraine as a way station to get to the Russia gate aspect of it as it relates to Donald Trump. So they were trying to leverage the work that Manafort was doing with pro-Russian forces in Ukraine as a vehicle to target President Trump. So you can't separate Ukraine and Russia gate. And at the same time, as we now all know, they were ignoring all the red lights and alarm bells about the corruption involving Joe Biden and his son Hunter.
Let's go to the anticipated IG report. The date I'm being told is the 18th of this month. I'm tired of saying it's coming, John Solomon. And one thing I can say,
I know,
is that I'm told it will shock the conscience. of the and soul of the country.
I think so. We may see an interim report, as I mentioned yesterday to you, Sean. I think the IG is going to release an earlier report just before this one. They're working on it, trying to get it out next week, possibly. Taking a look at the FBI's failure to manage human sources, what we call informants, people like Christopher Steele. All the things that we've been talking about Christopher Steele, red flags about his credibility, nobody stopped and paused. Having his informant human source validation report done after his work instead of before his work, making sure he was valid before they used him as an informant. All of those symptoms that we saw in the Christopher Steele case are likely to be exposed as a more systemic problem inside the Comey-McCabe FBI. That's going to be a very important part, and I think it sets the stage then for the FISA abuse report, where we're going to see.
Is there any doubt, an exit yes or no question from both of you, is there any doubt there was premeditated fraud committed on the FISA court for the purpose of spying on the opposition party candidate, transition team, and presidency? Tom, you get the first crack. Yes or no?
Oh, publicly available information and testimony. We already know it took place. We're going to get further confirmation from the IG report. The question is, will there be criminal referrals flowing from what we already know thanks to the FOIA and testimony by people like Comey, who admitted that it was unverified and salacious.
John.
I think Tom has it right. Yes, there's already enough information confirming that, but the IG report will take it to the next level. And the only question is, will anyone be held accountable in the court of law or in the court of public opinion? Those are the two questions that remain.
Durham now has the ability to subpoena, convene a grand jury, and refer criminal charges, doesn't he? So let's watch that half also beyond the Horowitz report. Thank you both. John, we'll see you on Hannity tonight. Quick break. 800-941-SEAN is our number.
Stay right here for our final news roundup and information overload.
She's talking about, that's what Megyn is talking about. She's talking about lowering the discourse to his level, which is horrible for this country. Even if people are working, we don't want to have a country like that. Do you understand that?
We've all
they don't
done
like
things.
The vessel of the Samaritan, so they quit. But nevertheless, look at the result.
We've all done things that we regret. I mean, if we're talking about bringing a discourse down, Joy, you've worn blackface. Whoopi,
no,
you said that Roman Polanski.
I'm sorry, and don't.
You said that Roman Polanski, it wasn't rape when he raped a child. So let's talk about.
So let's talk about this. So you want to bring this up? The question came up.
I did not go in blackface, please.
No, she was not in blackface.
Thank you.
Sorry. Listen, being black, I recognize blackface. This I can say.
Kimberly, you're a lawyer.
Yes.
And we've known each other. You were a former prosecutor.
Yeah.
I mean, did you advise your boyfriend that it is a federal crime to out a whistleblower?
I didn't advise him that it was a federal crime, but I did come out of the bathroom and say, I left you alone for 10 minutes. What happened when Mamacita's gone? Because by the
it's not a federal crime. It's only a federal crime for the IG to do it. That's in the statute. So that's, you can't,
no, that's
but
not
that's
true.
the point. You can't
that's
run
a lie.
It is.
Under U.S.
So finish
Section
that.
1505, it is a crime.
It's not accurate. Just ask Ray Paul.
My law degree says it is, but nevertheless.
But he's not the individual that first
my question is, you did speak to him about that.
I talked to him, no, not prior to. After I said, oh, what happened? He said, well, they're saying that I released this and I outed. But if you look at the facts, and the facts are that the name was out there, I'm not saying, okay, I understand what you're saying, that perhaps, okay, it wasn't the most prudent decision to retweet an article.
I get that I'm the son of a rich guy from New York. I understand that. My father has done a lot. I've benefited from that as Hunter Biden has. The difference is we did that as a private company. When we got into international politics, the second my father won the presidency, he said, we will not do new foreign deals going forward. Hunter Biden utilized his father's vice presidency to magically end up on a board in Ukraine with a language he doesn't speak, on a business he knows nothing about, for $83,000 a month. If I did that, you guys would lose your minds. Understandably, and you'd be right.
Can I push back on that a little bit?
So we stopped.
Can I push back a little bit? Because the D.C. hotel, your father's D.C. hotel, opened up just a couple of weeks after his election.
I'm glad you asked.
And you've actually made, I think, according to your father's financial report, he earned about $40.8 million, just a minute, from his D.C. hotel in 2018. Bottom line is you have made money.
But let me finish. These are the details that the media always neglects. Yes, we're in the hotel business. We have been for decades. That's not a secret. When we take money from a foreign entity, in D.C., most of it's foreign entities, right? The government-related foreign entities, when they come, we literally stroke a check back to the U.S. Treasury. We spend more money on accountants than we can make from this to make sure we're doing that right, because we can't do that. My father gives back his entire salary to the U.S. Treasury to be put towards causes, whether it was alcoholism, whether it was the Department of Interior. So we're literally not making money from any of those foreign governments. We're giving it back to the Treasury. And by the way, there's
but you
an
are making money from the hotel based on the
We're in the hotel business.
All right, that was from earlier today on The View. I mean, you got to give Don Jr. and KG credit for heading in there, but man, it was a beatdown. I find this fascinating. Now, here's the interesting thing. You've got to protect the whistleblower, non-whistleblower. Whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower. It's not a whistleblower. Sounds like more like a leaker to me. And now you got the attorney for the non-whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower saying, oh, yeah, putting up posts. We're going to impeach Trump. The coup has started. I predict fake news CNN will play a key role in Donald Trump not finishing out his full term as president. We're going to look back 45 years from now and we'll be recalling stories regarding the impeachment of @real Donald Trump. Oh, yeah, you don't think there's a deep state? You don't think there is this resistance? It's there. Been saying it for a long time. You know, the great irony about protecting the non-whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower, because, and you hear this when they're discussing it on The View. I mean, you've got the New York Post today. You have CBS News fires a female staffer that they believed had worked at the time at Fake News ABC. They're the ones that taped Amy Robach raging against ABC News. So in other words, what you've got here is the media targeting a whistleblower. What did the whistleblower expose? A major cover up of a pedophile that was, well, convicted or admitting to and charged with, accused Epstein in a cover up. We've got it all. We got it all on tape. We've confirmed it all. We even got Bill Clinton. Why did they cover that up? Now they're going after the whistleblower, firing the whistleblower. They're such phonies and such, outrageous hypocrites. It's unbelievable. Anyway, Danielle McLaughlin is with us. Jonathan Gillum is with us. There's nothing in the whistleblower statute at all. Nothing that says that the whistleblower gets anonymity. They get protection from retaliation and retribution of any kind, but they don't get anonymity. And I do know there's this document that I once read that says somebody has a right to face their accusers. Isn't that true, Danielle?
That's right, Sean. Hey, good afternoon. You're right. In a criminal trial, you get a chance to face your accuser. That's a constitutional right, but that's in a criminal trial. The early impeachment inquiry, just like a grand jury, is not the place where you get to confront your accuser. In fact, if I was in front of a grand jury, my own defense lawyer could not be present. So different procedures for different parts of the criminal process. You know what, though? The whistleblower apparently colluded with Adam Schiff's staff. So now the whistleblower needs to be put under oath, Jonathan, and Adam Schiff needs to be put under oath. And Joe Biden bragging about you get $1 billion if you fire the prosecutor. You don't get the billion if you don't fire the prosecutor. And Joe knew that the prosecutor was investigating his son, and no Democrat seems to care about that.
The whole thing is so unbelievably, fishy isn't even the right word for it. It's really criminal in the way that this whole thing is. It's just like everything else before with the Russian investigation. It is more of extortion and more of entrapment than it is anything else. I mean, it really is entrapment in the way that that they basically were waiting for something that they could put out there that the president had done wrong, and hard for him to release the information because he's talking to another world leader. You know, the thing is, when we're talking about the legality of whistleblowers, I think you pretty much nailed it right there, that they're protected from retribution, but they're really not protected from people who know them and know that they're a troublemaker and then say, oh, I know who that guy is. That guy's a troublemaker. And I'm pretty sure, because I've been talking to a lot of people, that I know who this person is. And there's several people that orbit in the same group that are troublemakers, and they know who they are. And all of them are leftists that have worked in and around Schiff and the White House. And that is very, very troubling for me as a civilian and me as somebody who used to work for the government, that these people would take jobs in the White House under a prior administration and then sit there during this administration for the sole purpose of jamming the president of the United States up when he's just trying to do his job. It is so
All right, let's do the intellectual honesty test for Danielle. Sorry, Danielle, we're putting you on the spot.
You
Okay.
cross-examine me.
When Joe Biden is bragging and saying, you got 6 hours, fire the prosecutor, you'll get $1 billion. If you don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting the billion. You're not going to get the billion. Now, we know he was warned by the New York Times and others that he knew that the prosecutor he's asking to be fired, the one he says is so corrupt, was paying his no experience son had no experience in Ukraine, oil, gas, or energy, none. He said it himself on ABC. Looked like an idiot, but he said it. And so he's demanding using U.S. tax dollars in a quid pro quo. Fire him, you get $1 billion. You don't fire him, I'm not giving you the $1 billion. Now, Danielle, is that a quid pro quo? Yes or no?
Yes, but not in the same way that the current president, wanted.
Slow down a second.
President
You're right,
Zelensky
because Donald Trump isn't. Donald Trump was asking about election interference in 2016, and Donald Trump knew about the quid pro quo. Do you know that? Would you like me to read you the statutes that are applicable to Joe Biden? You tell me. We have 15 U.S.C. 78. It is illegal for a U.S. person to coerce, influence through bribery, $1 billion, or extortion, $1 billion, a foreign nation into taking action, fire the prosecutor, that might financially benefit that person, his family, Hunter. Does that fit? Does that law fit?
No, it doesn't, because the prosecutor was not prosecuting Burisma, and that was the problem that Biden had.
He was investigating Burisma.
The European Union had.
The kid had no experience. Why do you think they were paying him millions of dollars? Why were they paying him millions of dollars? Tell me.
I think it was improper.
Okay, well, here's another one.
It was wrong.
Let's go to 18 U.S.C. 201. Whoever gives, offers, or promises anything of value to a public official to influence an official act is guilty of bribery. Does that apply to Joe Biden? You fire him, you get $1 billion. You don't fire him, you don't get the $1 billion.
He wanted the prosecutor to be fired because he was a dirty, corrupt prosecutor.
No, he wanted him fired because the New York Times told him that prosecutor was investigating his zero experience son being paid millions. That's why, Danielle. And please don't tell me you don't see that, because I don't believe that.
I can tell you that the prosecutor, who was named as Shokin, as we all know, the IMF was holding up money to the Ukraine. The European Union.
Tell me that he's not firing him because he's investigating his son, Jonathan Gilliam.
You can't. Look. It is plain as day when the individual, Biden, says what he says in a video. I mean, you can't get any more of a confession than that. And it was the exact same thing that happens with all these people that have gone out and committed crimes, and then we go and bust them because they open their big mouths and brag about how bad they are, how tough they are. And that's what Joe Biden
Checkmate Jonathan Gilliam. Otherwise, you have to suspend all intelligence, intellectual honesty, reason, common sense that you were born with. Now, we know what happened.
Even Lutsenko, a former prosecutor from Ukraine, said that Biden did nothing wrong.
That prosecutor said to the Washington Post, to ABC, to John Solomon, I got fired and was told I was fired because of Joe Biden.
And then he walked it all back. He said,
it seems like it's a pretty corrupt country. I don't know if I'd believe anybody walking anything back. Maybe he's thinking something bad's going to happen. Maybe he was told something bad's going to happen. That's all I see out of Ukraine. Thank God I've never talked to anybody from Ukraine. Is corruption. Everywhere I look, corruption. All right, as we continue, Danielle McLaughlin and Jonathan Gilliam. Jonathan, I don't know. I feel terrible. Every time Danielle, she literally, she just believes. Do you believe in the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny?
My 4-year-old does, but no.
Because when Joe Biden knew his son was being investigated and he quid pro quo, you get the $1 billion if you fire the prosecutor, you don't get it if you don't fire him, and you got 6 hours. For you not to connect those dots to me, I'm having a hard time understanding. Jonathan, you help me out. I'm having a hard time understanding Danielle's thinking process.
Well, it's a mystery to me as well. I love her to death, but I will tell you this, Sean. Danielle's not the only one that thinks this way. I've had the same debate with multiple people that are on the left, and for some reason, there's a block there that doesn't allow reality and common sense to get in there. And I hear this same thing that Danielle said over and over again. The Ukrainian prime minister or the Ukrainian AG or whoever it was, you said there a sec when we were on earlier, you said that he said and was walking back. Who cares? We have the law. The law says this.
He gave 3 separate interviews and he was fired within 6 hours. I think that's evidence enough that he told the truth to ABC, the Washington Post, and Solomon. Why was he fired then, Danielle, in 6 hours?
I don't know. I don't know why he was fired.
I can tell you why. Because they told him, we need the $1 billion, you're out. That's why. I just helped you out. You could just say, thank you for helping. Thank you for opening my mind. You're welcome.
Well, I'm always appreciative, Sean, but I don't agree with you. How about that?
So then why did they fire the guy in 6 hours?
They fired Shokin, and we're talking about 2 different prosecutors. Okay, I want to be very clear.
Okay, why did they fire the prosecutor investigating Hunter Biden?
Because
why?
He wasn't investigating Burisma or really anything.
Yes,
he was a part of the old Russian-backed administration, and he was not prosecuting.
So the New York Times lied to Joe Biden?
Corruption.
The New York Times lied to sleepy, creepy, crazy Uncle Joe.
Well, I'm not going to call him sleepy or creepy. I think he's done an enormous amount for this country. I don't know what the New York Times
don't take a picture with him. You might have a different view.
Hey.
Listen, it all comes down to this. It doesn't really matter what the Ukrainians did or didn't do or who got fired. The fact is Joe Biden sat up there and admitted to doing what he did. That's all we need to worry about, is that Joe Biden broke the law. I don't care what the Ukrainians said or why the guy got fired. Joe Biden sat up there and said it himself.
Checkmate, Jonathan Gillum. Danielle, we still love you, but man, you're making my job. You're raising my blood pressure. All right, when we come back, I know you've been very patient. We'll hit the phones next. 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program? That's straight ahead. All right, 25 now till the top of the hour. I mean, it gets so frustrating here. You got the quid, you got the quo, you got the pro. You got the $1 billion. You've got the warnings. He's investigating Hunter. Mr. Zero experience, not a little, zero, none whatsoever. He said on tape, well, why do you think they paid you millions of dollars? I don't know. You have any experience? No, I didn't have any experience. Do you think maybe it's because your last name's Biden and your father's the second highest elected official, the vice president of the United States in charge of Ukrainian policy? Yeah, probably. That's probably it. And now we know because of John Solomon's work, we had Freedom of Information Act requests. They were expecting something for that. They were going right to the Obama State Department, asking for favors, raising Hunter Biden's name in the process. We have Americans that, are on the board. Hunter Biden, is on our board. Oh, now it all fits. Where's the corrupt mob in the media? What have I been saying lately? It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I've been saying the level of utter hypocrisy is breathtaking. They cared about Russian interference, but not the dirty dossier. There's all the I believers, but nobody says anything about I believing in the case against the lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. A lot of I believers about obstruction of justice, but none of them cared about the subpoenaed emails deleted, the acid washing with bleach pit, the hammers with the devices, and the removal of SIM cards. They didn't care. If they can bludgeon Trump, they're going to bludgeon him. If they can't, they will just, never mind. It is breathtaking hypocrisy. Yeah, the coup has started. You doubt there's a deep state now? Maybe Hannity's not this paranoid conspiracy theorist. Joe Biden was warned by the New York Times and others that Hunter's under investigation by the prosecutor Shokin. You got 6 hours. Fire him or you don't get the $1 billion. Fire him. I'll give you the $1 billion. You got 6 hours. Son of a bee. They fired him. What else do you need? How do you ignore that? How do you ignore that? That's how sick, ugly, twisted, corrupt the mob is and the Democratic Party is in this country. I keep telling you, what are we? 362 days from now, you get the final word. Are you going to reward this madness? Because they haven't done anything for we, the American people, except rage psychotically against all things Donald Trump. Donald Trump's been busy working while fighting them. He's able to walk and chew gum at the same time, keeping promise after promise after promise after promise after promise. I just wish he'd tweet a little less, Hannity. Well, what is he supposed to do when you're under so much fire? There's not many people like me in the media. There's a few of us. We got Rush, thank God, the great one, thank God. You know, we got a few shows on Fox, thank God. Not everyone else is on their side. You got a network president, fake news, CNN bragging about, oh, yeah, well, we're gonna go after them every single second of every day. Wow. The New York Times say we devoted every single resource in our newsroom to one story, and then it didn't work out the way we wanted. Now we're going to focus on race. Well, now they're focusing on Ukraine. That's how sick, ugly, corrupt, they're twisted. It is hurting the country on a level that is, for me, it's like I can't even describe the damage that they're doing, and they don't even care. New York, Fred, Sean Hannity Show. What's up, Fred? How are you?
Hey there. I want to touch on what you were talking about, what I've noticed about this liberal psychosis that you keep talking about. I've noticed that, one, it's more real than ever. And I also think it's worse than ever. I'll give you a quick little story and let you go. I had a dinner party at my house the other day with 4 couples, kids, wives, food, wine, and everything. And the dads are sitting on the couch, and Donald Trump comes up, to which we all have different degrees of, political views. I'm more right. My liberal friend starts getting up and screaming about how, he's a thief, he's a liar, he's this and that. The Ukrainian interference and all this stuff. And I said, look, first off, you're at my house, you're drinking my wine and food, and you're yelling at me and calling me an idiot because I listen to Sean Hannity. But I said, look, you're no expert in Ukrainian politics, nor am I. But where do you get your information from? He goes, New York Times, and they're right, and they're right, and they're right, yelling at me in my house. I said, you know what? Get out of my house. I'm like, I don't want to listen to this anymore. So I've noticed how what you're saying about the psychosis is real.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I know friendships that have been lost. I know families. I'm going to have to give advice again this year as we head into Thanksgiving. How to deal with your psychotic, rage, Trump, crazy leftist, Pelosi supporting relatives. Good luck. Turkey legs are going to be flying all over the country. That's what my prediction is. We'll have to do that before Thanksgiving. There's only one answer, because you can't reason with them. They're not going to listen to reason. They're not going to admit it's a quid pro quo with Joe. You get $1 billion, fire the prosecutor investigating my kid. You don't fire him, you don't get the $1 billion. No, they're going to say Donald Trump, who was faithfully executing Ukrainian election interference to support Hillary, thought they cared about it. And what Joe is on record doing, if I was an AG, I'd be all over that sucker, leveraging $1 billion taxpayer dollars to benefit his son's finances with no experience, zero experience hunter. South Dakota, Laura, next Sean Hannity Show. Hey, Laura, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Sean, I have just had it with the Senate Republicans. I just heard that they're now saying that Trump did not commit quid pro quo. Oh, I'm sorry. He did commit quid pro quo, but it's no big deal. They're saying that a quid pro quo is not impeachable, and they're carrying this narrative. Now, this narrative does not help Trump. This narrative helps Biden. Why are they trying to help Biden by carrying that kind of narrative?
Because they're corrupt. There is no sanity. Again, you have to separate yourself from all intellectual reason if you're on the part of the liberal mob. I mean, a lot of these people, I can tell you what their motivation is. They want to be on TV. Listen, I can tell you, I've seen it again and again and again. It's not healthy to be famous. I'm telling you, it's not. There's nothing good about it. And you get all this praise. I never got this much praise when I did a good job as a contractor or a good job as a bartender or cleaning people's dishes. There's something unhealthy about it. For some people, they'll be whoever they need to be on television. That was never me. I never wanted to be on television. I hated television in the beginning, if you want to know the truth. And I did radio because I wanted to do talk radio because I loved it. I loved it as a kid. My parents shut that radio off. But I watch people literally transform before my eyes because they like being famous. You have congressmen and women and senators and governors. They say all the right things. Look at Ben Sass, the ass. I mean, that guy flipped pretty quick, and we had so much hope for that guy. They go to Washington. They like being called senator or congressman or governor. I don't know. I stay out of D.C. as much as possible. I stay out of New York City as much as possible. I don't need to be around these people. I don't want to be around. They don't like me, and I don't like them. I love that the president, every Washington Correspondents' Dinner night, he goes out and he does a rally with the American people. He wants to hang with the people that make this country great rather than that elitist group of corrupt, the incestuous relationships that exist between staffs and the media. Oh, you have no idea. It's so, they're dating each other. They're sleeping with each other. They're drinking with each other. They're partying with each other. They're eating with each other. Sorry. Very common over there. And I don't give a rip what they do in their own private life, but they're not doing the work of the people. Donald Trump is single-handedly, he's done the heavy lift. He's kept his word, and they hate him for it. He cured cancer. I'm telling you, they would impeach him for curing cancer. Dan, Michigan. We need Michigan so bad. How are you, Dan?
Hey, well, you're going to get Michigan, too. We're going to get Michigan. Hey, by the way, Sean, I've been upset. I've been frustrated like you. And my dad said over the years, whenever I get frustrated like that and say, how could, and he simply said, it's good versus evil. And if someone's evil, they can sit there, look at you in the eyes and lie. And that is at the base of our fighting. But moving forward.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I have a different take. Let me tell you my take. My take is I think that we get these revealing moments, and I've talked a lot about this. Smelly Walmart Trump supporters. Oh, I can smell them from here. Irredeemable, deplorable. Oh, they're angry and cling to their God. Okay, I'm guilty. They believe in the Second Amendment, their Bibles, their religion. Well, yeah, if you're like me, people don't know, I guess, about Christianity. Christians want to be forgiven for screwing up. They're not perfect. Everyone expects them to be perfect. They're not. And I think they think that they're smarter than us. They're superior to us. There's a condescension that exists that is disgustingly corrupt and wrong. And we, the people, are looked down upon. And they think that they're the super patriots saving the country from Trump. I think they've convinced themselves that they're doing the will of God, some of them. That's how corrupt they are, how distorted they are in their own brains. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. No, hey, listen, yes, sir. But, hey, I just wanted to go to Attorney General Barr real quick. Like, everything you have said about Biden and the evidence and him and his Hunter and Joe, if they were Republicans, like you've outlined, the Attorney General of the United States would have opened a criminal investigation if Joe Biden and his son were Republicans. And I guess I would ask you, somehow, if not you, if we could put pressure, being honorable is not enough. Barr has to show he has the guts to open a criminal investigation against prominent Democrats. That's what we need out of Barr. If a Democrat broke the law and they're prominent like Joe Biden, he's got to do it.
I think, look, I wouldn't want the president to ask for that. It's so obvious we need to investigate it. Just like we need to investigate. I'm glad Grassley and Ron Johnson are bringing back up Hillary's, email scandal. Because you know what? A lot of corruption happened there. She did violate the Espionage Act. She did obstruct. Hopefully with the Horowitz report, we're going to be getting to the bottom of the premeditated fraud on the FISA court to spy on a candidate, a transition team, and a president, the outsourcing of intelligence gathering. It's just taking forever. It's driving me nuts. But here's Donald Trump you got the transcript. Read it. He's going at the heart of what everybody cared about, election interference, Ukraine's big role in 2016 election interference to help Hillary Clinton, a DNC operative colluding with the Ukraine and the Ukrainian embassy in D.C. to dig up dirt on Trump and his associates. I thought they were outraged at that type of behavior, but they're not. They're just phony liars. And then, leveraging $1 billion of taxpayer money. You got 6 hours. You fire the guy that's investigating my son. You get the billion. You don't fire him, you don't get the billion. That is quid pro quo for Joe. Yeah, I've cited the statutes. Greg Garrett identified them. I agree with his analysis. They're very plainly written. There's nothing complicated in them. You don't need a law degree to figure it out. Back to our phones. All right, Tina, San Antonio, next. Sean Hannity Show. Tina, how are you?
Hi, Sean. Two questions. Well, one question and a comment. Your caller from yesterday that became unhinged when you asked him why he hated rich people, I think that he's jealous. And I think that he doesn't realize that putting a Democrat/socialist in power will even take his opportunities away of being wealthy because they want to control everybody.
They want everybody else's stuff. And I got to tell you, they're willing to empower the government to take it from people. I would argue at this point, steal it and then give it to them rather than, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And you go work your ass off like everybody I know that has money. Yeah, I think that let me tell you one thing about money. Because this is important, Tina. You're right. This hatred for people that have money is real. I'm going to tell you what money is. Money, I always say when I give my staff Christmas bonuses, money is freedom. Save it. That's my advice. Save it. Save as much as you can. People don't save enough. The other thing I can tell you is I don't care how much money you have in life, you're going to have problems. Everybody does. Life is not easy. Road less traveled. Life is difficult. And the last thing I'll say is, we all think we own stuff. I own my house. I own my car. I'm not into watches. I have friends that are so into. I own my watch. I own my jewelry. I own this. I own that. You know what? Reality is you don't own anything. You don't own crap because the day you die, unless you get buried in your car, somebody else drives it. Somebody lives in your house you thought you owned. Somebody's wearing your crap unless you bury yourself in your crap. We don't own anything. We're all renters. Last word. Go ahead.
My question is, who authorized the change in the whistleblower requirement from firsthand to secondhand to be legit? When did that happen, and why is that not being questioned? Who changed that?
I have not gotten a satisfactory answer to that, and we're still digging into it. You're right, because this isn't a whistleblower. This is a hearsay whistleblower, a non-whistleblower. Actually, I think the more applicable term is leaker. All right, I got a break. Thank you, Tina. Quick break. Right back. We'll continue. All right, loaded up tonight. The great one, Mark Levin. We've got all the breaking news. Solomon Fitton, Jason Chaffetz, David Limbaugh, and much, much more. Greg Jarrett. All coming up tonight, 9 Eastern, Hannity on the Fox News Channel. Set your DVR. We'll see you tonight at 9. We'll be back here tomorrow.
iHeartRadio brings you some of the biggest podcasts of all time, like Stuff You Should Know and Stuff You Missed in History Class. Plus the hottest podcasts of the last year, like the Ron Burgundy podcast, Disgraceland, and Monster, the Zodiac Killer. Not only does iHeartRadio produce some of the most popular podcasts in the world, but now the free iHeartRadio app is the fastest growing app for listening to your favorite podcasts. Over 280,000 podcasts, all easy to find and free to listen to on the app or anytime at iHeartRadio.com.